So we'll get started. I'm just going to create this rectangle. I've got my grid on just for a little bit of guidance, really. With these types of things, you don't have to be too precious, but I think it definitely benefits your workflow, moving forward if you do keep your grid on, and that's just Shift G to toggle that grid on and off. So we'll take a look at, let's take a look at this semi-transparent one here, as I'm quite sort of drawn to that, but initially I was drawn to that style, so yeah, we'll do that. The first thing that sort of grabs my attention is this black stroke that's slightly offset, and I believe it's probably achieved with some type of drop shadow. So we're going to go fully opaque with that. We're going to just reduce that blur a little bit, probably by about 2 pixels. Let's offset it, and we're going to increase that spread. If you can sort of see, like it kind of gives it a way that looks like a drop shadow because of the way it sort of spills out of the object it's sort of sat behind. We'll do that, and then we'll put an outside stroke on it. And as you can sort of see, like straight away, we've pretty much got that effect. If you look closely, you'll see that either it's a sprite issue or there's another drop shadow. So we'll just assume it's intentional, and we're going to just offset that on the Y a little bit, reduce that blur, it looks like completely, and there you go. Let's halve that down to 4. No, we're not going to be able to see that one. Let's keep it at 6, let's put it at 6, yeah. The next bit would be the core of it is, so the main base is obviously semi-transparent, and another effect we can apply, if you've been watching, you know that I love stacking my effects up. It could be layer blur, no, not layer blur, sorry, it's a background blur, isn't it? They don't do that here, but I quite like the whole sort of like glass morphics style, where you've got like the area in focus, which is outside of the box. I quite like that. It sort of really works well for that sort of UI trend. The next bit would be so we'll just name that base. I'm going to duplicate that with Command D, and yeah, the next bit would be to remove the blurs. We're going to look at this sort of little subtle stroke on the inside here. The reason we had to duplicate is because in Figma you can stack strokes, but you can't individually apply where that stroke appears. So everything in the stack is going to end up having this setting, so it's going to sort of make it relatively sort of tricky to get that effect that we've got here. So by stacking up the object in the canvas here, we'll be able to get that effect. And let's just drop that down a little bit. Let's do about 60. At the moment, we're just sort of eyeballing things, like trying to get an idea of the large shapes. It doesn't have to be too perfect at this point. And this is the highlighting inside. So it looks like here it's about 1/3 down, there it's halfway. So I think for the sake of this, let's just do it about 1/3. The radius appears to follow like the natural curve of the shape outside of it, so something like that works quite well. I'm just going to whack that up to fully white, and I'm just going to reduce that a little bit. Let's see. Cool, so that's looking pretty good. So as you can sort of see, like relatively quickly, we've got pretty much the main effect here, and the beauty of this UI is that effect is used pretty much everywhere in all of the other UI components, especially mostly for like interactive elements. It seems like, you know, all these buttons here, they're all interactive. Probably even the progress bar, I believe it's tappable, so it's made to look that way. This area here, probably not interactive, like you can sort of see that container there, but then you have these two buttons that would be interactive, and they would probably, tapping them would float like different tooltips with information of currency and stuff like that. Sweet. So that's the base there. Let's put highlight, edge, and there you have it. Like that's the basis, but we can take it a step further and we can create the rest really. So that would be the button, and we'd probably want like a separate one for the progress bar potentially. We'll take a look at that. So we'll create a component out of it. It's always good to create components. Just drag your master off to one side, but also if you remember, like you lose it at any point, components get added to this assets section here, and you can sort of see, and then there's a way to sort of, you know, obviously insert them, but right click and you can sort of like, you know, go to main component and stuff like that, or view the details. So I'm gonna create an instance of this by just alt click and dragging. That's looking good. So we have our clear one, which is straightforward enough. And what you can do is, if you wanted, you could actually put your text in there. So this is probably, I think, you know, following up after my test. So I already selected the text, and Supercell seem to use the same text for all of their games, or at least the ones that share the same sort of theme of Clash of Clans or Clash Royale, that type of thing. And yeah, just create a quick fill there. Text and the drop shadow. Obviously the drop shadow would be fully opaque here and slightly offset, so just whack that up to 100 and there. And the cool thing about components is it gets updated live. You might not always want that, but in this case we'll roll with it. As you can sort of see, as I started typing that, I just need to format this text a little bit so it doesn't type left to right, and it's positioned in the center. So that would be the best way to do it. And as you can see, it then gets updated, which is one of the really useful things about components. So we have our semi-transparent button, which is looking good. Let's create the orange one, which is like fully opaque. As you can imagine, this is really straightforward actually. There's no real gradient or anything like that going on. The only thing that you might want to change is this overlay here, or the highlight isn't quite picking up that sort of orange color in the way that it appears to here, which sort of suggests that they're using a blend mode. So if we just set that to overlay, that should allow us to get what we need. Before you know it, we've got, you know, the bases of this button. There could potentially be like a little gradient going up there, just to give it a little bit more visual interest. So let's go and whack a little gradient in there. So as it gets higher up, which is this widget here, we're just going to increase the brightness slightly, and that creates for quite an interesting effect, doesn't it? Cool. Just drop that down a bit. Sweet, it's looking good. We obviously don't really need the text at this point, so in the instanced component you can just turn it off. And this is really interesting because if you start to build upon this, you can like start building icons inside here. So for example, I'll do this. I'll do a quick chat icon here. Let me just zoom right into that. So grab that chat icon and just give that a little radius there. And let me just see what it looks like again. So radius is probably too extreme. Something like that. And this is like really sort of straightforward stuff, little drop shadow. Opaque again, it seems, so no blur. And the fall off isn't as strong. And then what we'll do is, if we just select a triangle, we're going to rotate this around. There we go. Shift that into place. Enter to go into sort of node editing mode. We're just going to adjust that to suit our needs, really. Something like that could work. Cool. And yeah, we want to join these together. Sweet. So something happened there, like we joined them together and then I lost the styling here. What happens is it appears that it takes on like the root styling. So, you know, you can copy like properties and paste the properties and then it reapplies them on top. So nothing's ever really lost, but yeah, it's just something to think about. It's quite an interesting effect. Like the cool thing about Figma is you know, you can really sort of like play about with this these Boolean operations and get some really interesting effects. It's not exactly what I need right now, but something like that might be. So yeah, we'll just adjust that. And we're just gonna shimmy that into place. Sweet. Final touches for this. This isn't the main feature of the video at all. This is you know, just sort of just something that we just need for a little bit of context, really. So we're gonna just duplicate this and duplicate once more. Go for that nice even spacing. And let's group it, and then we'll chat icon. There we go. So it's looking pretty good. I think there's a tiny bit of difference between mine and, you know, theirs, but it doesn't really matter too much. And this one. Cool. Shift select them and then just push them into place. And yeah, that's looking fine enough, isn't it? So we'll turn that off by default. In fact, let's pop that back on. And we'll just colorize this one. There we go. That's much better. Sweet. So we can turn that off, and then on the orange button, we can turn it on. And it's yeah, sort of that straightforward, really. So you would get your icon positioned where it would need to be, and you can set up your constraints here, and then yeah, your icon's in place, looking pretty sweet. So for this instance, just turn that off. We don't need to worry about that too much. And yeah, so this is essentially this button, but just semi-transparent, really. So you're selecting that base and you're just going to drop it down. So let's take it down to about 60. It's going to be hard to see because there's not much information behind, but this will, you can sort of see we need to introduce a little bit more of the background. So that would be highlights it needs tweaking. You can do that type of thing. And then you might want to, just boost this. Because you've reduced the transparency, you lose a little bit of information there. So it's a bit of a balancing act, it seems. You might want to play about with the blending modes as well and sort of see what effects you can get with it. But that's looking pretty good. The stroke, or the edge, you might just want to reduce that potentially. Theirs is relatively bright actually. You don't always have to just rely on sort of trying to match it with values and blend modes. It's kind of like horses for courses really. You could just go straight in there with the correct color you want and do it that way and get something closer. And the same applies for this really. If you want a little bit of that color, just select the color and then just drop that transparency a little bit. Sweet, so that's looking pretty good. You can obviously reduce this and you can sort of see what's happening. That highlight isn't respecting the transformation, so we'll just need to set this to left and right and maybe top and see how that behaves. Yeah, there you go, perfect. Constraints are so handy. So that's looking good. And I guess the same would apply for any of the other buttons really. So you got your quick editing thing here, so you could make your opaque button, and then you could select your green and your green. Yeah, there's no gradient ramp here, I don't think, but sometimes it's nice to pull it in there. It's looking good. And obviously again, select your green, maybe a little bit brighter, maybe a bit more yellow. There you go. It's looking pretty good. It looks like there might be a little bit of a gradient fall off actually on the highlight. So there might be something to consider. You maybe don't need to worry too much about it. But yeah, it's those minor details that I think do end up making a difference really. Sweet. So as you can sort of see, that's essentially the effect, and they, like I said, they use it everywhere. What we'll do is I'm just going to pop in artistic license, just pop in a shadow, which will then be coming in a glow, and I'm just gonna just increase that a little bit. And the nice thing about doing that, especially with glass effects, is it kind of just gives it a little bit of softness on the edge where the light is sort of bending around. And these are things that you might want to think about when you come to have a go. So maybe we'll do the progress bar. Let's detach the instance. And for the progress bar, you probably just end up creating your own extra component for it. It's up to you really. The info text will obviously become 2 space like that. That's cool. And we'll need some sort of fill in there for the progress. So this bit, pull that over there. Gonna align that to that side. Gonna and then we're going to do this little manor icon. Quite an easy icon, to be honest. So we just dragged it up, click on the anchor points. These anchor points are so useful, but they can be a little bit fiddly. I'm not sure I'll fully ever get used to them, but yeah, there are so much more. There's so much more potential with these compared to what you can do in Photoshop or something like that. Let me just whip that one back a little bit more. Sweet, that's looking kind of like the shape. Nothing too heavy involved in that. And I think that's like the general theme of this UI, is that this is one of the biggest free-to-play mobile games in the world, if not at one point in time it was the biggest. And the UI is incredibly simple, and you can do it. You know, there's no reason why you can't do this. Which means, in theory, we should all be able to get jobs working for Supercell, right? Just increase that 1.5, give it a little extra weight. It looks like it's slightly rounded, so it's a bit softer. So we're just gonna reduce that a little bit, which looks nice. So with this, we'll probably be able to handle most of it with just the one object, so this shape, and we'll select the colors here. Let's just flip those around. And the highest point, which is this guy, this guy, is going to boost that saturation up quite a bit. We'll pop a inner shadow at the bottom, and this is just going to allow us to have a little bit of bounce light. So it's obviously bouncing off something below that is illuminating the bottom. And this is essentially, it's like rim lighting. It just helps lift, you know, that sort of section really, or like that bottom part. And let's see if we can just boost that a little bit. Cool, and pop that up to, let's go for 60. Cool. And this is just like, you know, sort of trial and error. Try and get as close to the effect you want as possible. Looks like there's a little bit more red in there, so I'm just adjusting that. And this part here, probably gonna achieve that with a radial gradient. So if we select the radial gradient, and we're just going to drag that around, and it's purple, obviously. So we're just going to sort of try and get an idea of, I think this is called the terminator, like that point where it sort of rolls away from the light and it isn't affected by any bounce light underneath. That's the terminator, and that gives you that sort of like 3D spherical effect really. Let me just boost this up so we can really see what we're doing. It might be my default settings, but they're always around 20% transparency when they come in. Drag this handle, that's going to increase or decrease the width of the radius. And as you can sort of see, if we lower that, maybe introduce a little bit more pink. Increase that again. You can sort of see how we're well on our way to getting that effect that we want. It's looking pretty good. something like that. So there's 2 extra things. So there is another spot highlight, which is another radial. This one should be easy to do. We're just gonna, yeah, once again, 20%. Not ideal. Just bring this in. Should be radial, right? There we go. Bring that back out. There we are. Maybe just soften it a little bit. Too much. Zoom in. Cool. Looking pretty decent. And there's like an extra highlight here, which gives it just a little bit more form, really. And that's as simple as this. Cool. Looking good. Press Enter to exit draw mode. Might just round it off a little bit. Something like that. Can you see that? These are relatively subtle, these effects, but yeah. There we go. How's that? It's looking pretty decent. Take it a step further. For the sake of the video there, we're probably okay. And if we just duplicate that, we're going to use that as a mask for this highlight. We'll put the mask, which is this, below the thing that we want to mask. So this would be the mana icon highlight. This is your mask. Okay, so there we are. So that's cool. Just going to zoom in here a little bit, and let's just round it off a bit. There we go. Something like that. Nice. Looking decent. So there's your highlight, there's your mana icon, and yeah, you just adjust it to how you want it, really. If something's bothering you, change it. You know, there's no harm in doing that. Stuff like that, you know, you want to make the shape slightly different, go for it. And the same for this. That one. It's fiddly at this zoom level. There we go. Select your... No, doesn't want to. There we go. There we are. What Figma gives with one hand, takes with the other, right? Looking good. So we'll just group that, and that can be mana icon. The final bit, I guess, would be to, yeah, just create the fill. Straightforward stuff. Remove all that. Remove the stroke. It looks like it's like just flat. There's no sort of gradient to it. The one thing that is added to it is a bit of an inner glow or something like that. Maybe it's part of the gradient, but we'll put an effect in here. Different ways of doing it. Inner shadow. There we go. And just pick a nice pink colour. Increase that. And there we are. We just need to adjust the radius here. So up to the top, we have top left, top right, bottom left. We want to adjust bottom right and top left, top right. There we go. There we have it. This is obviously much more transparent. So if we do that, here we get something relatively close. There we have it really. The general construction of these elements is straightforward, but it is beneficial to to practice as much as possible with this type of stuff. Even if it's not a style that you're currently using in a game you're making or something like that, knowing how to quickly call upon these types of skills is definitely beneficial for you as an artist. It's it's good stuff. It's fun to just fly through these, isn't it, and see where we end up, see what we can create. And although we never really get a one-to-one match, I don't think this is the intention is to sort of ever really get that one-to-one. It's more sort of can we demystify the UI in this game? Can we sort of take a look at it and be oh yeah, actually this most successful free-to-play mobile game in the world is constructed, at least the UI is constructed out of these sort of reusable components that are really easy to make. And we should be thinking about that in the future. So on future projects you might be working on, or anything sort of personal for yourself, how can you make your UI as efficient and as lean as possible? Because planning that now, during this stage, as you start to build your sort of reusable components and stuff like that, it will allow you to get a better idea of how you're going to break these down, how you're going to hand them over to developers and stuff like that, or how you're going to actually implement them into a game engine. It allows you to create a design system, which is UI is the foundation is a solid design system. It allows you to create a design system that every time you revisit it after working on a new project, this doesn't confuse the hell out of you. You just know straight away what's going on. And it also allows you to be able to hand that over to other artists as well if you're working with multiple UI artists on a project. It's just having that design system in place allows for that consistency to flow through the project, and it also ensures that in the future other UI artists working on a project aren't going to break the system. They're not going to ruin it by creating assets that are not as good as how they originally started when you created your design system. But yeah, essentially that's it, guys. And it's a quick one, isn't it? It's not too impressive and not too heavy, but I think there's a few learnings here, and we can definitely take that forward with our practice and our profession, our hobbies and our interests. And until next time, if you haven't, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And let me know in the comments if you found this useful, if there's anything to improve or anything you want me to add in the future. The video's too short, are they too long? Is there an annoying thing that sort of happens? Whatever it may be, drop a comment in the comment section of YouTube. And and yeah, we'll sort of chat. This Figma file will again be shared. I'll publish it and you'll be able to create a copy of it so you can sort of dissect and dig around. I'll probably clean up a little bit of the the layer stack here. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It just depends. If I'm being quite sort of cathartic and not really too precious about naming things straight away as I'm trying to get the ideas down, doing the sketches, I'm not going to worry about naming the layers. But yeah, the Figma file will be made available and it'll be a little bit more tidier than we can see here. So yeah, catch you next time.